Xenobot, living robots can reproduce. Biological robots made from frog cells can replicate by smushing loose cells into new robots, a reproduction method not seen in any other organism. Xenobots, living robots made from the stem cells of the African frog Xenopus laevis, had already impressed researchers by moving, healing themselves, and even spontaneously peeling up debris that was strewn about. But when those small synthetic particles were replaced with loose stem cells, the little living bots did something remarkable. They brought those cells together, constructing new xenobots. These are frog cells replicating in a way that is very different from how frogs do it. No animal or plant known to science replicates in this way. Harvard University synthetic biologist and roboticist Sam Krigman, co-lead author on the PNAS paper describing the discovery, says in a press release from Harvard University's Wyss Institute. Xenobots were first born when scientists extracted skin stem cells from frog embryos and cultured them in salt water. All on their own, the cells clumped together and cells on the outside of these clumps developed cilia, which allowed the clumps to move. They would also randomly make piles of particles in their environment, which according to the Washington Post, led the researchers to wonder, would they do the same with loose cells? It turns out the answer is yes, and the piles of cells they create become new functioning xenobots. As the authors explain in their paper, clusters of cells, if freed from a developing organism, can similarly find and combine loose cells into clusters that look and move like they do, a kind of reproduction called kinetic replication. Furthermore, they add, this ability does not have to be specifically evolved or introduced by genetic manipulation. The team then used artificial intelligence to predict what shapes of xenobots might be most efficient at this gathering behavior. The supercomputer landed on a Pac-Man-like configuration, so the researchers tested it against a few other designs by carefully carving the naturally spherical xenobots into different shapes. As the algorithm predicted, the miniature CS were most successful in producing baby xenobots that reproduced themselves, resulting in multiple generations of bots. While seen in molecules, such kinematic replication is not known from the tree of life, co-lead author and University of Vermont computer scientist Josh Bungard states in the Wyss press release. The ability to replicate adds a new layer of potential utility to the robots. Krigman tells the Washington Post that while xenobots are not yet commercially useful, with more work they have the potential to provide a number of services, from cleaning up microplastics from the ocean to safely delivering drugs in humans. The researchers say they want to extend their research by creating biological robots out of mammalian cells, reports the Post. They ultimately aim to increase the robots' intelligence to the point where they can operate without any human intervention. Of course, such work would require additional ethical considerations, Krigman tells the newspaper. Krigman also stresses that xenobots would never get out of control and cause a robot apocalypse. It's an extremely controllable and stoppable and safe system, he says, noting that simple changes to the sodium content of the water or adding a bit of copper to their dish is enough to kill the delicate bots. Now scientists at the University of Vermont, Tufts University, and the Wyss Institute for Biologically Inspired Engineering at Harvard University have discovered an entirely new form of biological reproduction, and applied their discovery to create the first ever, self-replicating living robots. The same team that built the first living robots, Xenobots, assembled from frog cells, reported in 2020, has discovered that these computer-designed and hand-assembled organisms can swim out into their tiny dish, find single cells, gather hundreds of them together, and assemble baby Xenobots inside their Pac-Man-shaped mouth that, a few days later, become new Xenobots that look and move just like themselves. And then these new Xenobots can go out, find cells, and build copies of themselves. Again and again. With the right design, they will spontaneously self-replicate, says Joshua Bongard, D. A computer scientist and robotics expert at the University of Vermont who co-led the new research. In a Xenopus laevis frog, these embryonic cells would develop into skin. They would be sitting on the outside of a tadpole, keeping out pathogens and redistributing mucus, says Michael Levine, D. A professor of biology and director of the Allen Discovery Center at Tufts University and co-leader of the new research. But we're putting them into a novel context. We're giving them a chance to reimagine their multicellularity. Levine is also an associate faculty member at the Wyss Institute. And what they imagine is something far different than skin. People have thought for quite a long time that we've worked out all the ways that life can reproduce or replicate. But this is something that's never been observed before, says co-author Douglas Blakiston, D. The senior scientist at Tufts University and the Wyss Institute who assembled the Xenobot parents and developed the biological portion of the new study. This is profound, says Levine. These cells have the genome of a frog, but, freed from becoming tadpoles, they use their collective intelligence, a plasticity, to do something astounding. In earlier experiments, the scientists were amazed that Xenobots could be designed to achieve simple tasks. Now they are stunned that these biological objects, a computer-designed collection of cells, will spontaneously replicate. We have the full, unaltered frog genome, says Levine, but it gave no hint that these cells can work together on this new task of gathering and then compressing separated cells into working self-copies. These are frog cells replicating in a way that is very different from how frogs do it. No animal or plant known to science replicates in this way, says Sam Krigman, D. The lead author on the new study, who completed his D. in Bongard's lab at UVM and is now a postdoctoral researcher at Tufts Allen Center and Harvard University's Wyss Institute for Biologically Inspired Engineering. On its own, the Xenobot parent, made of some 3,000 cells, forms a sphere. This can make children, but then the system normally dies out after that. It's very hard, actually, to get the system to keep reproducing, says Krigman. But with an artificial intelligence program working on the Deep Green supercomputer cluster at UVM's Vermont Advanced Computing Core, an evolutionary algorithm was able to test billions of body shapes in simulation, triangles, squares, pyramids, starfish, to find ones that allowed the cells to be more effective at the motion-based, kinematic, replication reported in the new research. We asked the supercomputer at UVM to figure out how to adjust the shape of the initial parents, and the AI came up with some strange designs after months of chugging away, including one that resembled Pac-Man, says Krigman.